Right now, I have to stop saying.
Coming up on the DLLS Stars pregame show for Game 6, we'll break down some interesting issues the Stars are trying to overcome from their Game 5 shutout loss in Winnipeg. And, of course, we will address the big news of the day, the passing of Mark Scheifele's father. Last night, news broke this morning. We'll get into all that. And, of course, the Stars are trying to send the Jets home for the summer. Pregame show starts right now here on DLLS.
Get ready, boys.
This is the DLLS Stars pregame show. Our Stanley Cup playoff coverage is brought to you by Bud Light. Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Enjoy responsibly. And by Happiest Hour, your home base and the best place to catch the NHL playoffs and cheer on the Dallas Stars. Just steps away from the AAC. The ultimate spot with 50-plus beers and 40-plus TVs for all the big moments every single game day. Happiest Hour, your favorite spot for the Stanley Cup playoffs. Big welcome into tonight as we get ready for Game 6 of the Stars-Jets second-round series, both here on YouTube and on Victory Plus. Welcome to everybody watching on both platforms. Alongside Craig Ludwig, I'm Owen Newkirk. Sam Nestler is live at the AAC, and John Andersen is at the controls. And we're all in mourning one way or another. For the producer and myself, it's the end of the title defense of the Boston Celtics. And for the Winnipeg Jets, a much more somber moment as Mark Scheifele's father, Brad, passed away. We are hearing it was last night. The news broke this morning. Actually found out about it about the time the team was on their way over. Kevin Cheveldayoff, the GM of the Jets, walked up to the press scrum expecting Scott Arniel during the optional Jets morning skate. And when Cheveldayoff stepped in front of all the cameras, everybody knew something was up. And he broke the news that Scheifele's dad had passed away, that Mark Scheifele was at the hotel, Scott Arniel had gone back to the hotel to be with him, and that his status at that time was up in the air. But Sam, as we've learned, because Scott Arniel did meet with the press this afternoon at the AAC when the team returned to the building, Scheifele is going to play.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's just gut-wrenching stuff. Condolences to him and his whole family. Reminds you that there are a lot bigger things in sports, right? Kind of puts things in perspective, but tough way for them to start the morning, obviously, for him. But as you mentioned, Scott Arniel went back to the hotel, spoke to Mark Scheifele, and he decided that he was going to play in this game tonight, said that he wants to play for his dad. That's what his dad would have wanted. So Mark Scheifele will be in the lineup tonight, which obviously on the ice is huge for them. Good for him to get into this game. And, you know, there's two sides to it. You never know what that's going to look like. He could be a very motivated and focused player, or he could be someone that's very distracted from the just terrible evening and morning that he's faced. So good news that he'll play in the game. Obviously, you'd like to see the teams at full strength here tonight. But it was a crazy morning for the Winnipeg Jets, and we will see what type of player he's able to be tonight. But obviously the bigger stuff is more important there.
Luds, obviously, I always say as a fan, I want my team to beat their opponent's best lineup, meaning I don't root for injuries. I don't want to see guys get hurt. I want to beat them at their best because that's the best bragging rights. Obviously, this is a horrible thing, and as Sam said, I echo the condolences to Scheifele, his family, and the Jets surrounding, because it definitely ripples through the room, and this could have an interesting effect for both teams.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the Dallas locker room, you know, or you are talking about it, because I can promise you there's a group of guys that are saying, let's do this for Brad. And so I think it could be challenging for Dallas, you know, and Dallas is going to have to match that, because they're going to look at this. They haven't found a way to win a hockey game in the playoffs on the road. So this may be just something that gives them that little extra to get over the top. And I'm talking from the goalie out. I would assume, like every NHL locker room team, they're a tight group of guys, and when, you know, somebody goes down, everybody feels it. And the best way to do it is to, lift them up. And so I would expect it would be a motivated team tonight, and Dallas has got to be ready for it.
Sam, the Jets were really good in Game 4. The Stars found a way to get the goals and beat them. They were really good in Game 5, and Dallas struggled with that. And it seemed as though whoever got the first goal, I know it seems sort of cliche, but in this series, that's meant a lot.
Yeah, it's always important, right? It's a hockey cliche to score the first goal. Play with the lead is much easier than playing from behind. But I think it's 4 out of 5 games in this series that the first goal has won the game. And the only one that didn't happen was when Niederreiter scored and Rantanen answered probably 4 minutes after in Game 1. So really, it's been the story every game. And that's because these teams are very similar in the way they play, especially when they have a lead. They're able to really lay on their structure, frustrate teams in the neutral zone, and not set back and defend, but just play to their structure and not have to take a chance here and there that may open things up. I think for this game, this is the first goal is the most important of the whole series. I really, truly believe that the team who scores first in this game is going to win the game. And for me, it opens up the other team, right? It gives, if Dallas scores first, Winnipeg has to open up and take a little bit of chance on the rush. They can't just frustrate Dallas, and vice versa. So for me, I look for both teams to say, we need to go out here and we need to act like this is the overtime in first period. It sounds ridiculous, but that's how I feel about this game. I feel like both teams need to come out and say, we are going to take it to them in the first 10, 20 minutes of this game, and we're going to act like this is an overtime, and we have to win that first period. Because if you're Dallas, you're playing with a series lead here, but we know that going back to Winnipeg is not going to be a guarantee by all means. So come out here, show up early, and I think the Stars have struggled with that at times in the series and in the playoffs. They've kind of eased into some of these games. I think they have to come in and be absolutely on point tonight and score the first goal.
Well, speaking of being on point, they're going to have the 11-7 again, as we heard from Pete this morning, for the third straight game. And Sam, I think we all were kind of leaning towards, well, Miro's pretty close to playing 20 minutes plus, which is what DeBoer said was his sort of line of demarcation to going back to 12 forwards and 6 defensemen. But as he explained this morning, there's some other factors besides just Miro.
Yeah, it's been kind of a threefold thing here, right? The number one thing we knew was Miro Heiskanen. We weren't sure if he was going to be ready to play the, as Pete likes to call it, 20-plus minutes, which is essentially what they would have him in. Maybe not Miro when he's fully ready and he's playing 26 minutes, but it's essentially where they'd have him if they only had 6 guys. So that's one thing. If he's physically, mentally, conditioning, all that stuff, ready to do that. The other side of it is what Pete said a few days ago, which is that he really likes giving an extra shift or two to some of the forwards that maybe haven't gotten going a little bit. As Sean pointed out, he's kind of able to control that even if he has 12, but it does allow it a little more free-flowing, right? You have to put someone out there. We didn't see just Mikko Rantanen playing every single shift on the opposite wing. We saw them put out Robertson a little bit more. Johnston got a few more shifts. Mikael Granlund got a few more shifts. And I think that helps some of those guys to get into the flow of the game. And then the third part of it is what Pete said this morning, which is, look, if we went into this 12-6 and we had someone either get hurt, get thrown out of the game, or we go to overtime, it throws the whole plan out the window. If we're thinking Miro's good to go for 20, 21 minutes, and all of a sudden we're down to 5D or we're going to a double overtime, that plan goes out the window, and now we're relying on either 5D with someone we don't really know how comfortable they're going to be, or we're going into overtime, maybe double overtime, and we don't know how much they can push him. And like we mentioned before, the focus is on winning these games. But for Miro Heiskanen, the main focus is on not further injuring this knee, right? They say the knee looks great, the knee looks fantastic, but the main concern for Dallas is not whether he can play in one game here. It's whether he can play in the future in this hopefully playoff run, and obviously down the line, because it's a very serious knee injury that can go south, and I think that's the main focus. So kind of a three-parter there. I was on the same boat. I thought they would go back to 12-6, but Pete said that he's liked how it's looked. The forwards don't look tired, playing a little bit extra. The defensemen have a little bit of wiggle room, and he can kind of put out a pairing that maybe he wouldn't have when it was just 6. So we'll see how it is tonight. I believe they're 1-1 going with it, so we'll see.
You're right. They are 1-1. They won the first one, and they lost the second. Sam, enjoy the Game 6 tonight, and we'll talk to you afterwards.
All right, boys.
Luds, the point that Sam just made was interesting, and I don't know if I had considered that enough. I wonder if at this stage, 11-6 is more about the potential for overtime than it is a 60-minute hockey game. You think?
No, none of this. It's all about Miro. 12-6. What's the difference? I mean, you can sit a forward down. I want to get a couple guys some extra time.
Mm-hmm.
Sit a forward down. It's not that difficult.
Right.
This is about Miro. You can tap dance all around it. They want to make sure that whether it's overdoing him and getting him the minutes that he needs to get to the next round, because the next round becomes, again, planning on getting to the next round, really important, because you have two incredible forwards that you would love Miro Heiskanen to be as close to ready, close to 90, 95%. I don't know if he's ever going to be 100% the rest of this year. But yeah, to me, this is we've got a couple games here. We don't want to have to use both games, but we want to, this is almost conditioning for him to get into the flow of the game, feel better. And he looked to me, I thought he looked a lot better than game one. They're expecting him to look a lot better now until the next game. So that's what it is for me. Like I said, you can go ahead if you want to put Bork in, or you want to put Blackwell in, and if you don't, you want to get Rantanen or Robo some more minutes. Give them more minutes. That's what you do in the playoffs. Your top guys get more minutes. It just comes with the territory.
All right. Before we get to our first break, I wanted to ask you about Dallas being a response team. The Stars have not lost back-to-back games in the playoffs this year. Both times they were previously shut out on the road, they came back to Dallas and scored tons of goals. It was Game 5 against Colorado after getting blanked in Denver. They came back and won 6-2. And then Game 3 in Game 3 against the Jets, they won 5-2 after getting blanked in Game 2 up in Winnipeg. So, what do you think makes them so good at re-racking and getting wins and not letting that snowball continue in the playoffs?
Everything, coaching. I think leadership in the room. I mean, if you get out in front and you win a game or two and you never lose 2 in a row, you're set up pretty well for every single round. So I think it's a mentality that and again, I think that it was led by us a long time ago from a guy, Eddie Belfour. When Eddie had that off game, he always came back, totally different in the game that after a loss. And so that just carried over to the rest of the group when you see those players. So I just think that there's a motivated group here that understands, you can't have any kind of a losing streak in the playoffs.
The other thing that's interesting is the comparison of the Jets home versus road. Now, I'm going to play you some clips with Pete DeBoer in the next segment and if we go through stuff, but I have a graphic for you to take a look at, because for as much as Pete says you have to prepare for Connor Hellebuyck's best possible game, it is totally fair for us to bring these questions up. Look at the difference between the records home and road for the Jets this playoff run. So this is the first and second round combined. This is goals for, goals against as a team, their special teams, and then that's Hellebuyck's save percentage. I didn't include the parts where Comrie came in and spelled him during the St. Louis road games. But you can see it's just drastic. And while they may be motivated, while they may be playing as desperate as ever because their season is on the line, those are startlingly contrasted numbers.
I can look at all that, and I can go, all he has to do is win one game.
That's right.
And he's due, right? So, and I think he's coming off a game that helps him come into tonight's game. He understands everything that's going on the road. Nobody hears it more than he does. And so I just think that, again, with everything else that's going on over there, there may be a couple little things that are on a positive for Hellebuyck in the game tonight.
All right, up next in the Stars pregame show, let's hear from head coach Pete DeBoer. A couple of issues that we've got to go through as we get you ready for tonight's Game 6. Stars and Jets coming up at scheduled 7 o'clock. We're hearing puck drop is actually slated for about 7:22 Central Time. But we're, pregame show, rolling right along here on DLLS.
Here we are again, Stars fan. What's up? Well, I'll tell you what's up tonight. It's Game 6, otherwise known as the closeout game. Join the game better be easy, so don't overthink it. What to wear? Throw that favorite Stars jersey on. Not sure what to serve your friends? That's even easier. Pick up some pizza, grab some beer, grab some Bud Light, and get a bunch of tape, and then wrap it around the can of Bud Light and write whoop ass on it, because that's going to be your can that you're going to drink all night long. Stock up that fridge with a lot of whoop ass, all right? See, it's that easy, just like Bud Light, which is always brewed with 4 simple ingredients for a clean, crisp taste. Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy, but remember, do it responsibly. Bud Light, Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis, Missouri.
Thank you, Let's talk about Sleeper. It's the best fantasy league platform out there. Put your puck or your ball knowledge to the test by picking whether your favorite or least favorite players will have more or less than their projected stats each week. In a few minutes, or actually in a minute, John will give you his game picks for tonight, and I can't wait to hear what he has lined up, especially in front of our official Sleeper leaderboard tallier, Bobby, our director of content, because in the postgame, we're going to talk about that and why apparently it's rigged against the DLLS Stars show. With Sleeper, the more picks you combine, the more you can win, all the way up to 100 times your money. Sleeper keeps you in the loop with instant alerts for breaking news and major injuries. Stay ahead of the game and keep track of league updates in real time so you're always informed and ready to outsmart your friends. If you think you have what it takes, new users can download the Sleeper app and use the code DLLS Stars to get $55 in free entries when you place a $5 contest. Apply it to any contest. It doesn't have to be your first. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. And now, here's John.
I was waiting for the introduction there.
Of
I would
course.
have stayed silent until you did it. So when you get into this more or less business, what you find is that, especially when you're doing multiple picks on an entry, such as on Sleeper, a lot of it is dependent on game script. And the game script, in my mind, is that the Stars are up by 1 or 2 goals with 5 minutes left in the game. The way they're going to get there, though, is on the power play. So we're going to start with Roope Hintz to record more than 0.5 power play points tonight. And in that final 2 minutes of the final 5 minutes, rather, the game script I have is Jake Oettinger facing a lot of shots. So I have Jake Oettinger to record more than 26.5 saves. He has done so in 3 of 5 games so far this series. I've also got Esa Lindell. We're going back to the well there, the Lindell well. Made up that on the spot, if you can believe it. I think I said that last round, too, and I'm doing it again by accident.
As if it's the first time.
Yeah.
And we're going to pretend like we've never heard it before. That's creative gold.
And Luds is so tuned out right now. But I've
That's
got
okay.
Esa to record more than 2.5 blocked shots. He has done so in 3 of 5 games so far this series. And on Sleeper, you do need to include picks from more than one team. So we're going to go with Dylan Sandberg, defenseman for the Winnipeg Jets, to record less than 1.5 blocked shots in this game. He has not achieved that feat in any of the last 3 games. $10 entry wins the people $207.
Ooh, he's going big tonight.
60 cents. Luds.
He's going big. Thank you, John. Let's talk about the spring cleaning sale at ALLCITY Network. If you want to get a really good deal on some of the shirts that have been in the store for a little while, now's a great time to do it. Go to alldls.com. That's our website. Click on the merch page, and as you can see, up to 75% off some, 30% off store-wide with some exclusions. Those exclusions include the Stars playoff shirts that we have unveiled, including the Finnish Mafia second run. We already sold out once. We had to do it again. Pre-order today before it's gone. If you like this shirt, which is, I think, the best one we've had, make sure you order it in the size that you want and get it before it doesn't come back. Then, of course, you have the Wyatt Johnston 16-bit shirt, the Mikko Rantanen finisher. Stars are hoping to finish the Jets tonight. The original Finnish Mafia, says our boss. And we also have the Mikko Moose shirt and the Jamie Benn captain. So all of those are available. None of those are part of the sale, but you should get those. And while you're there, grab one of the other great DLS shirts on a discount. Do it right now. Okay, let's talk about some things that have cropped up. So, Luds, I've got a clip for you from Pete DeBoer. I actually have 3, but I want to talk about penalties first. He was asked about it yesterday at the airport when they came back from Winnipeg. And here's what Pete had to say about the Stars and their penalty troubles.
Well, we got to work on it, but, it doesn't make a lot of sense when you're the least penalized team in the league all season, I mean, we haven't changed our style of play. So, we'll have to work within what's being called.
Okay, so a couple things to add to this, and then I'm going to throw it over to you, Luds. The Stars were not the least penalized team in the league during this regular season. They were the year before. This year, they ended up, and I know they had a little run at the end that kind of skewed the numbers a bit, but they were 15th in time shorthanded, both per game and overall, even though they had a top 5 penalty kill. And that was basically top 2 until the last 7 games of the regular season. Speaking of which, so the Stars were 15th in time shorthanded during the regular season. They are first in time shorthanded and second in time shorthanded per game in the playoffs. So that is a drastic difference. The Jets, on the other hand, were 27th in the regular season. They are second in times per game and they are fourth in times per game and second in total times shorthanded. The point is, both of these teams, which fancy themselves as pretty disciplined, have not been so in the playoffs.
Well, I mean, I think sometimes it comes out of frustration. I think that for Dallas, especially offensively, when you play against teams, and you play against Colorado, who's tough to defend to start with, and now you play against a team that's hard just to play against in general because of their structure and their size and their physicality. So I think you get a little bit frustrated in those games. And a lot of times the penalties, it's the type of penalty. It's not so much the penalties, the roughings, and those are fine, and some that may save a goal here or there, but it's the ones where you're chasing from behind. And generally that's because you lost your coverage somewhere along the line, or you try to create another extra offensive chance, or you cheat a little bit on a play. So, and that leads to outnumbered rush more, unfortunately, than anything else. So I think it comes out of frustration a lot of times. And I think there's been times during the course of the year where goals were a little bit easier to come by, and they had a rough start, then everything was going on the net. And then when you're not getting those goals to go in the net, your frustration starts there, and then you end up taking penalties all different ways.
The one thing that carries over, a question actually, does it carry over, is the Jamie Benn and Mark Scheifele incident. Ben was fined $5,000 yesterday by the league, which was the maximum allowable for his actions that led to, he had a 2-minute minor and a 10-minute misconduct. I believe Scheifele and Brendan Tanev also got penalties. And Stars ended up on a power play on that circumstance, partially because Tanev got third man in penalties. But do you think that there will be any carryover between those two combatants here in Game 6?
No, especially from the side of Winnipeg, because the most important for that team is to win the hockey game. They have to win the game. So I would think that that's one of the things they're going to talk about, is keeping their composure tonight. They can't be going to the box. They know how good Dallas is at home. For the Stars, I could see where they may want or not want to, but if they do, they think they can get away with it a little bit. But I would think it would be the same for both teams. I mean, you're talking about Game 6. The one thing you don't want to do, one thing Jets want to do, is they want to play a Game 7, but you don't want to play a Game 7 if you don't have to. And what they're, I think they're 5-1 at home, and they're a couple games under 500 when it comes to the road. So they want to finish this thing tonight. They don't want to go on the road again. They know how Hellebuyck plays there. So they have to play a game where they're not taking penalties tonight, and they can't put themselves in trouble, especially early in the hockey game.
Yeah, they've won 2 road games so far in the playoffs, one in each of the opponent's buildings, which was enough to help them get over the hump in the first round, and it should be enough if they can win their home game tonight. One more note on the penalties really quickly, and then I want to ask you about a couple other things. But to Pete DeBoer's credit, if he's talking about being one of the least penalized teams, they have the 6th fewest penalty minutes per game average in the league. Now, penalty minutes doesn't necessarily mean you go shorthanded. You can get 10 minutes misconduct. You can get matching penalties, so it doesn't affect your manpower on the ice. But both of these teams were in the bottom third in the league in penalty minutes per game, which doesn't necessarily mean power plays against, but I understand where his discipline is. But speaking of power plays, Luds, the Jets were 1 for 16 with a man advantage in the first 4 games of the series. They went 2 for 4 in Game 5. Did something change, or was it just the circumstances?
Well, I think they found a little. I think they know how Dallas wants to kill, and when you play a team enough, you find little cracks in it. And for Dallas, they're having success, so they didn't change anything. I think what the Jets did is they changed a couple things, only because they are seeing the coverage and they're finding little cracks here and there. And I think in general, when you watch the ones that weren't going in the net for the Jets, they had a lot of guys in the perimeter. And I think now they're trying to get more people in front of the net, or at least in the high slot. Whereas before they had almost 3 or 4 guys on the outside and they were passing the puck around too much, or they're trying to use that play off the goal line, which Ehlers, for some reason, solved that. Although that was a 5-on-3, I believe. That wasn't a 5-on-4. There's a little more room on that one for Ehlers. So, but anytime you play against a team every other night for 14 days, you generally figure out something, and then it's up to that team to change things.
I asked Jake this morning, actually, about that Ehlers goal on the 5-on-3. And I said, is there something about that, or, what'd you feel? He goes, that's on me. He goes, that's a bad goal. That shouldn't go in. Yep. And I love his candor. He's so honest. He gets it, I think, part because that's who he is, but also because Ben Bishop was the same way. And I remember very distinctly a particular game where there was a post-game interview with Bishop during the regular season. He said, that's one I need to make the save. I wouldn't do anything different. I just didn't get it. He goes, technique-wise, I did exactly what I wanted to do. And
it was his stick. And if you, when the times that they were trying it, what Jake would do is he gets the stick out in that passing lane, but he keeps it in tight to his pad, and he gets it slanted in a certain way. This one, he got it out to the right side of his pad, and there was about 2 widths of a puck. That's all it was. And so he didn't have his stick where he generally has it.
And you know what he said to me? He goes, I know better because I know that my guy has the back post pass.
Yep.
And he goes, I was trying to cover both.
Yep.
And he goes, I have to trust them. He said, usually I do.
But it is different when it's a 5-on-3. And a goaltender knows that you're short one guy. And that's what's supposed to happen. You kind of play, you stagger it a little bit, and the only responsibility for the defenseman is to play off the back post. The puck can't get across, and it gives your other 2 guys time to collapse if somebody wants to walk it off the line there. And so, yeah, but it works both ways. But again, for Jake, I mean, it was literally a matter of inches, and I think we can give him a pass every once in a while here.
He's been incredible, right?
Besides Jake Oettinger and that goal and special teams, it's been Jake and special teams. That's what this playoffs have been about. Yeah, Rantanen has stepped up and won a couple games in there, but the consistent has been Jake and special teams.
Let's see here a couple more things. First, a question asked to Pete DeBoer this morning about his team's calmness.
Pete, throughout these playoffs, it just seems like your team is remarkably chill through all this, has the highs and the lows. Where does that come from? Does that come from experience? Does it come from somebody particular in the room? Does it come from you?
I think we have a mature group. You know, we've got a weathered, battle-tested group that has been through these before, and they understand to waste energy overreacting to the highs or the lows in the playoffs is not helpful. So I think we understand, and I think that's our group, the key guys in our room, having been on long runs before, understanding that, and that's a big part of playoff hockey.
Believe in the process.
It reminded me of thinking about your team in the late 90s a lot.
Well, you don't panic. You know the team that you have. You know when you play whatever way they want you to play. The system that you have, they've been trying to play it here for 3 years, so they're used to it, and they've had success doing it. They haven't got to the ultimate end yet, but they believe in the process. And generally, you don't. You're a fortunate player if you get into the league and you win a cup in your first year or so, but you're probably in that situation where a lot of other players have had to go through it in order to get to it. So they've got guys that have been through this, and so they believe in the process, they trust in the system, and most importantly, they trust in each other.
Well, one other question that I clipped, there were some other good things, and DeBoer went into a pretty lengthy discussion about why 11-7, and we talked about that already, so I didn't want to play a 2-minute clip of that because we could do it ourselves, but he was asked about comparing with Game 5, where they lost 4-0 up in Winnipeg. How do you increase shot volume and thus more scoring chances? Here's what Pete had to say.
Well, there's no one easy answer to that. I think we've got to get out of our own zone cleaner. We got to get through the neutral zone cleaner. We got to forecheck better. We got to have more of a shot mentality, offensive zone. We got to have more net front presence. You got all that?
He's right, though, Luds. It's a lot of different little things.
Forget everything else he said prior to the last 2 things. You have to have a shot-first mentality.
Yep. And
we've been talking about it. I think they've done a better job, but here's the problem why they're not getting a lot of shots in this series, because it's a really good structured team. And I really don't think it's been that bad. I mean, I tried. It's 150 to 117. That's the shot difference.
Yep.
That's it. It's not that big a deal.
It's not.
It's like 5, 6, 7 shots a game somewhere in there. Special teams has a lot to do with that. But it's just getting to the last thing Pete said is the key that goes along with shot mentality. Somebody has to be in front of the net. It's hard for goaltenders to stop pucks when they can't see it. And so this has been a team all year long that has been able to play a certain way, and the net front has never been one of the top 3 things for them. They are able to pass the puck and score goals. Things are different in the playoffs. We've seen what they've done as they get going a little bit closer to playoffs. They were directing more pucks to the net. And if you have that idea where pucks are going to the net, then guys don't hang on the outside waiting for a pass because they're not going to get it because it's going to the net.
So you look at game 4. They gave up 4. One was a 5-on-3. The first one was a 4-on-4 deflection off a stick and then off of Harley's leg. The third one was a 5-on-4, and then they gave up an empty netter 6-on-5. Not a single 5-on-5 even strength goal. Now, again, 4-on-4 that is even strength, but it's not 5-on-5, the classic way the game is played. Is that something that the Stars coaching staff would bring up today, saying, hey, we played a pretty decent road game, but they won the special teams battle?
No, you didn't play a really good game. Not even decent.
Yeah.
They weren't that good. I mean, it wasn't a good game. It was because of their goaltender again. They have to create more offensively. That's it. I mean, we were going there in the first period and then going into the second period. Yeah, there were some ebbs and flows where they got a few shots here and there that were quality chances. But for the most part, all those things that you're talking about, how many quality chances? Didn't Jake have to stop one of his rear end too?
He actually made a save on Perfetti with his back to the play.
That's all he had.
It just hit him.
He was the biggest part of your body, apparently. But I'm just saying, we have to give credit where credit is due. A lot of this is because of Oettinger. And do they have another level? Absolutely. And maybe this is the time now you start getting that shot mentality like Pete talked about, traffic like Pete talked about, and take some of that confidence that Hellebuyck may have coming out of last game, even though he hasn't won a game on the road yet in the playoffs.
Hellebuyck, buck, Hellebuyck, buck.
I love that. All right, Luds, anything else you want to add to tonight's pregame before we sign off? Because that's pretty much all I had for tonight.
No, I just think that you have to expect a team because of what happened to Mr. Scheifele and that you have to be prepared for a little extra push tonight. And so be ready at the start of the game.
On the flip side, this is your building.
Yep.
You know what's at stake if you lose this one. It's now, can they go to Winnipeg and win another game? Yes.
Yep.
But it will be very difficult in front of a home crowd. We saw all the stats. Winnipeg's a much better home team in the playoffs. They were a good road team in the regular season, but it hasn't translated to the postseason. And this is an opportunity to not get to that nail-biting, nerve-wracking Game 7 winner-take-all when you know that a couple days later, you're going to have to play the Edmonton Oilers if you get through. You get through tonight, you might have a couple of days to rest and recover and get ready to play a very tough series. But you can't be worried about that.
The last thing you think about is the Edmonton Oilers right now. And you have to – I said this about the Jets, their last game. They had to empty their tanks in their building, and then you worry about the next game. This is what both teams are doing now. They both want to get to that last one. Dallas, even though you're at home, they have to empty their tank. You can kind of recharge after this one, but you have to finish this now because you do want to give a little rest. And should they play that other team, you don't want to give them another couple days off before you start.
All right. Should be a fun one tonight. It's a 7 o'clock start. Should be at 7:22. It's on ABC, I believe also on ESPN+. And then, of course, we will be here for the full post-game wrap-up. It'll be Luds, John, myself, and Sam from the AAC. So go enjoy the game, go Stars, and check us out on DLLS right after the game.
I believe that they are going to crush these guys tonight.
We all silly like the mayor.